All right. We've got you in our sights. Welcome back to Popula, where we explore the lesser traversed avenues of pop culture. Today, we're going to talk about Star Trek, one of my favorite subjects, but not just the Star Trek franchise as a whole. We would never do that. No, we're going to talk about the most reviled Star Trek movie of all, and also my favorite one, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, and some really unique products that came from that movie. Welcome back to Popula. We are here. Dan is back. Let me give the salute just like you did. Dan is back. It's good to have you back, old buddy.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we're just going to jump right into it, Dan, because you know how we do things here. Like we don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the history of things because we assume that anyone nerdy enough to tune into this very niche channel already knows a lot of things.
Exactly. You're playing to the other Trekkies and other people who just love all this stuff from Marvel, the Star Trek, and the people here who may have seen Star Trek V on the marathons or on DVDs, or us old people who actually saw it in theaters.
So exactly, and I think a lot of Trekkies especially know that I'm a lifelong Trekkie. You are too. I think a lot of Trekkies know. Pretty much all of them know about the troubled history of Star Trek V's production. It was released in 1989. It was the directorial debut of William Shatner.
Of Mr. Pause and Dictate himself.
It may be the only movie, maybe big screen movie that he ever directed.
I'm actually certain that's the only time he's ever been behind the camera.
We'll have to double check that.
Yep.
But it was made after Leonard Nimoy had been very successful directing the previous two. And so the production team always referred to this as Bill's turn because he had a clause in his contract that he could do.
Yeah, that's right. Equal time.
Equal time.
Yep.
Yeah. They enjoyed each other's privileges. So this was Shatner's shot, I guess, to take the helm or, to be the captain in real life. Now, when this movie came out in 1989, and we're not going to dwell a lot on the bad reviews, the bad special effects, whatever the case may be. It is my favorite one. I'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into it. I'll say why. But when it came out, Dan, in 1989, I remember I saw it here in Houston with a group of friends and family on opening night. We were all very excited. And we went to a theater, a movie theater in the Galleria area, for those who know Houston, that no longer exists. It was called the Spectrum, I believe. And one thing I noticed that was very unusual that night, I had never seen this at any movie before, and I don't think I've seen it at any movie since. There was a merch table set up just to sell merchandise for this movie.
And which also showcased how much they thought this movie was going to be a success, or how much they were trying to milk as much of the profit as immediately before the word got out.
Exactly. Like it almost made me wonder, in retrospect, were they selling T-shirts and toys and things like that at the theater because they knew that they were going to need to somehow recoup their losses? I don't know if that's the case. But that night in 1989, June of 1989 at the theater, I saw these figures. They were on the merchandise table, and we have a couple more of them back here. There were 5 in total. And I remember being very intrigued by them. They were made by a company called Galoob, which I don't even know if that exists anymore.
It doesn't, but the other thing about that, as you can see from the back of the packaging, which we'll get to later, Galoob was the company that they actually hired not only to do these figures, but do the next generation first season figures, back when Tasha Yar still had a figure.
Yes.
And they later, I believe they got I think they either got bought out by Playmates, who later had the Star Trek line, or they just dissolved. I can't remember the full details, but this might have been one of the last hurrahs for Galoob at the time.
I think you're right. That all tracks. In fact, you could see the next generation characters on the back of the box. But back to my 1989 opening night story, I was very intrigued by these figures. I thought they looked cool. They're not really figures in the true sense, as we're about to see. They're somewhere between figure and statue. And they stayed in my mind forever. After that, I never saw them again in person at a store, ever.
Believe it or not, this is actually the first time I've ever even seen these myself. So I thought initially when you brought these out to me, I said, oh, okay, before I saw the back, I thought, wow, they're re-releasing these figures. They're really reissuing. No, these are the originals.
These are the originals from 1989. Like I said, I only saw them once in person 35 years ago. And then in 2019, it's been a while since then, but I had a birthday at the River Oaks Theater. For those who know Houston and know Houston history, the River Oaks is like the longest operating theater in Houston.
The classic River Oaks.
Beautiful place to see a movie. And I had a birthday party there at the River Oaks in 2019. And I decided, well, let's do a 30th anniversary screening of Star Trek V, which we did. And I wanted decorations that were appropriate for the party. So among the things I ordered were these figures. I found them on eBay for a fair price. And we're gonna now delve into the characters. And I'll tell you something else, Dan. There's something, not only are these rare, but there's something unique about each one of these that we're gonna look at. And we'll get into that. But first of all, and we are gonna take these out of the boxes too to give you a closer look.
I know it's a mortal sin. Trust us, folks. It's okay.
We're professionals.
Yes.
But we're gonna take a look at the characters just real quick to see which ones were included in the wave. We have Dr. Leonard McCoy here.
Our classic Bones McCoy.
Classic Bones right there. And it's the appearance of DeForest Kelley, I guess, the way he looked in the late 80s when he was already, getting up there a bit in age, probably approaching 70 years of age.
Considering the next movie that he did would be the last thing he ever was in.
Right. So we got that. Of course, we got Mr. Spock. Push him to the forefront here.
Late great Leonard Nimoy, literally just still, he's only gone so long, but man, I'm still missing that loss.
Absolutely.
But they presented him here in very much a beautiful form.
Yes. And we're going to talk about the ways, like I said, we're going to talk about the ways in which they're unique in a minute once we unbox them. But here's Kirk.
The captain himself, who has much to say about certain subjects.
The director of the movie. And let's bring these other two forward next.
Okay. So
we got Captain Klaa here, who's, I guess you could say he's the secondary antagonist of the film, right?
Yeah, that would be a good way of putting it. The primary being also, as we'll get to in a second, Sybok, who will be showcased right here.
Klaa was the Klingon and Sybok is the main antagonist of the film. He's a Vulcan who, spoiler alert, I guess we'll give a spoiler because it has been 35 years.
Yeah, spoiler, if you haven't figured this out by now, go see the movie.
He's Mr. Spock's half-brother, and he's a very interesting character. I thought the way the character was portrayed by Lawrence Luckinbill was just a wonderful performance. Whether you like the movie or not, Lawrence Luckinbill's performance as Sybok was wonderful. But we got a Sybok figure here. You had to have him because he's the main antagonist, although he's not a bad guy. If you watch the movie, you'll see he's not evil.
Antagonist is the best way of putting it.
Right.
He's not doing things just to rule the world or conquer this or conquer that. That would be Captain Klaa's motivation.
Right.
But in the same way, he is at odds with our heroes and is really what's spurring on most of the action of the film.
Absolutely. Sybok is really a man of peace. And Klaa, like most Klingons, is very warlike. And I like the character of Klaa, too. I'm not even going to hate on him. Like, I thought that the actor gave a good performance, and he was very intimidating looking in his role,
For me, I see the actors who all did this. Yeah, are they chewing scenery? Yes, they're chewing scenery. But they're doing it with a kind of love and devotion where they know, everyone knows, if we're going to do this, we might as well go over the top. And it works. In a kind of a way that you know, okay, is this a serious performance? Okay, mostly. Is it just almost cartoonish to the level that you go, this is fun? Yes. No matter what, these performances are just fun.
They are. And I would go so far as to say that Star Trek V is a fun movie. Mm-hmm. A lot of people say the cardinal sin of a movie is if it's boring. Right? This is not boring. It's a fun movie. You can nitpick it. You can laugh at certain aspects of it, but it's a fun movie.
Absolutely.
Filled with charming characters. Now, we want to give you a close-up look at the characters like I promised. So after the jump, we'll see them out of the boxes. And aside from Bones McCoy, who I once took out just to look at up close, the rest of them have never been out of their boxes before. So we're going to give that to you coming right up.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back and we're giving you a closer look now at the Star Trek V figures from Galoob, although I kind of hesitate to use the word figures because as you can see, there's actually no articulation.
None. Oh, wow.
The arms don't move, the legs don't move, and furthermore, they're kind of like, we'll put McCoy up front here because he's the one who's the most free from his packaging. But they also do not separate from the base.
Yeah, well, that I kind of figured. A lot of them don't do that. So in other words, what you have here is not necessarily action figures. These are marquettes. These are the standee figures you'd sometimes find. Normally, nowadays, you'd find them in made out of either ceramic or other materials, like you'd find for like DC and Marvel figures. These were in a lot of ways kind of a prototype of their time, even though it was plastic. These are the things that collectors would keep on their shelves.
But I think you're right. And I think they, even though there's no articulation and it's hard to call them figures even, they do look good on display. They're very fine looking figures in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
They do capture the essence of the character. They scale pretty well with Megos. Mego is, as you know, Dan, my favorite toy company, and that's the Mego Wrath of Khan Spock. And we put him beside McCoy there so you can kind of see.
Just slightly shorter. I'd say like if one is 1/16th, the other is like 1/17th. It's very much similar scale, just slightly different. And
and then here's the younger McCoy too by Mego. Damn it, Jim, I was a young doctor once.
Weren't we all, boys? Weren't we all? But I mean, even comparing the facial structure of the Mego versus these collectors, the attention to detail is amazing.
Now, here's the thing. Like, let's get the Megos out of here because there will be plenty of other Mego videos.
Rest assured, public.
For sure. Here's the thing that's unique. I alluded to this before. Okay. I might be wrong, Dan, but I don't know if any company made Dr. McCoy, I might be wrong, maybe Playmates did, in his movie era uniform. Playmates probably did.
Playmates, again, milked Star Trek for as much as they're worth for their 3.5-inch figures because they had the market and they knew they could sell it. I don't remember seeing the movie costume, unless you're talking the motion picture #1. Most of the time you see them, it was for Generations or for his later things that he might have been involved in. Almost never do you see it in the full red uniform.
So maybe Playmates put McCoy in his movie outfit, and I'm sure someone out there will let us know if they did, but Mego did not. Mego made Kirk and Spock in these outfits, but not Bones. So Bones may be the only one. If Playmates did make this outfit or Bones in this outfit, he may be the only one that's not unique, but the rest of them are unique for the following reasons. See,
Kirk especially.
Kirk and Spock, because you can guess why, Dan, because look at what they're wearing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the outfits they wore while they were doing the scout run to the moon to try to do the rescue. So they weren't in their normal, I'm in Starfleet or I'm in gold or anything else. Like they were in the subtle, I may be militaristic kind of roles, which was for them about 40% of the movie.
This was the commando kind of jumpsuits. They're like earth tones, and they wore them in the movie. All the characters did. Sulu, Uhura, Bones, everyone who went down to the planet.
Uhura wore a lot of fans.
That's true also. But for the landing party mission, they wore these outfits. They have never been made. Kirk and Spock. Think about how many Kirk and Spock figures have been made over the decades. They've never been made in these uniforms before, except for these two
Which,
here.
For the collector, honestly, is a great thing to be able to get because you never see them before. And by the way, if whoever has the rights to do the Star Trek action figures, something to think about.
That's true. That's true. We could get hopefully some new iterations of them in those commando jumpsuits.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe so. But before we get to these two, I just want to show, like, you get a lot in the box with these figures. They come, as you can see, with a kind of backdrop, and it looks like, is it the same on all of them? It's the same on all of them.
It's the same on all.
They have a backdrop that they come with, but then in addition, they gave you like some other cards that feature, I guess.
Well, it's so you can take, probably slots. Yeah, I believe I can see there is a slot in the back, so you could take this backdrop off, separating the character from the figure, and then you can put that slot right in the back. So if you want to showcase them, like if they're on a bookshelf or something like that, you have a better scene to give them.
Here's another one right here, and it has the Galileo shuttlecraft, and that's one of the things that I really love about the movie. Also, is that the Galileo shuttlecraft is back, looking better than ever. Yeah. And by the way, the reason I defend this movie and say it's my favorite is because, to me, it's and always has been the one that's most like an episode of the original series.
Actually, it reminded me almost very much, not just of an original series, but of like 2 or 3 very specific episodes. The one where the aliens take over the bodies and they want to fly them to Andromeda, someplace far away they're not supposed to be able to get to.
Right.
And the Welcome to Eden, the one where they find the space hippies, and they're trying to get to this forbidden planet that nobody thinks exists.
Absolutely.
And who also has the devoted followers. The main villain has a legion of devoted followers who will do anything for him because he's a spiritual leader. So it's very similar.
Very similar.
Yeah.
I've heard Shatner say, he's gone on record as saying that when he made this movie, he wanted it to be in the spirit of the original series, and I think he really captured that.
Without being a Herbert.
I was watching one YouTube review recently where someone was taking a look at Star Trek V, and this guy who was doing the review, he lamented the fact that it was kind of hearkening back to TOS, the original series. He said something along the lines of, Shatner was, did the wrong thing, taking the characters in this direction when they had already moved beyond that. And my response, to no one, I was alone watching this review, but my response was, fuck you. I don't know, we may edit that part out.
But put a little bleep there.
But I love the original series. I think the movie's a lot like the original series. You've got Klaa here. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Oh, please, go ahead. Go.
You've got Klaa as, Todd Bryant as Klaa, a great character. Like I said, a great Klingon. One of the things I liked about him was that he was almost like, it made sense that 20 years after the original series, the new generation of Klingons, and this guy was a young captain, he was portrayed as not someone who was the peer of Kirk and Spock. He's like a younger man, a generation younger, right?
With all the impulse control problems.
Right. And it made sense after all the skirmishes and battles of the past that he would see Captain Kirk as the enemy to defeat, right?
Well, again, at the time, he was the legend. And when they saw, even in the movie, when he saw, oh my God, it's the Enterprise, we have to get this ship. It wasn't, he's the big bad, oh my God, we can do this. It was for glory and honor, we got to go get this guy.
Right. So I like that character. I love this character, Sybok, played by Lawrence Luckinbill. We also, Dan, we talked about how the Kirk and Spock figures were unique because of their outfits. I really think that there's never been another Sybok figure. I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah.
This is the only one ever made. Same for Captain Klaa.
Now, again, I can kind of understand a little bit of Klaa because, again, there are bunches of other Klingons to work with, even though really he's got such a distinctive look. But Sybok, again, even though he was only a one-time character, he was so instrumental in the movie that he really deserved to have his own, his own action figure. Considering all the other minor characters they kept pulling from for, Playmates and a few others to have there just because they needed to keep releasing lines, and they never released a Sybok.
Right. So these are the only versions of these two characters that have ever been made. Like you said, it should be a note to future toy makers. It could be Mego. It could be anyone, whoever has the Star Trek license now. You might want to consider giving us a new version of Sybok and a new version of Captain Klaa. Now, I do have one more thing that I want to look at Star Trek V related before we wrap up this video. I have it as kind of a surprise for you, Dan. I want you to take a look at it, and we'll get your take on it.
Okay.
Right after this. Okay, so we're back, and here's the item that I wanted you to see. What do you think about this?
This is lovely. I mean, so this is obviously like straight from the theaters. This is like an actual a poster they would have up there. And okay, I will admit the first thing that I saw when I looked at this, I went, "Oh my God!" I read the bit at the top, wear their seatbelts in theaters this summer, and my first thought was, yes, seatbelts in the theaters. But apparently none on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise.
Right.
But
you're right. This is authentic. This is from 1989. It was the teaser poster, I guess, that went out a couple of months before the movie was released. And I think what's really interesting about it is that they really, I mean, you could just tell by the whole seatbelt thing. I've always wondered how serious they were about that. Like, did they actually consider putting real seatbelts in the movie theaters just as a gimmick? But it conveys the sense of excitement that the studio had about the movie. Mm-hmm. I think they thought they had a real winner on their hands.
Oh, absolutely. And again, they're like playing into some of the very simplistic advertising at the time. Because remember, this came out the same year as Batman, where all you saw was the Batman symbol and not even complete on the posters. So this one, fell into the same line. You got the title, you have the striker, and in the beginning part, you don't even see the Enterprise. It's off to the side here, right. Which is everyone knows this mythology. Everyone knows what to expect. And I'm not sure, again, you would be the expert on the production, and you mentioned even there was problems. My one question, I look at this, is did they know what the finished product was when they had this, to advertise? Or did they say, we don't have to worry about advertising the finished project. We're advertising Star Trek. And everybody knows Star Trek, and it doesn't matter.
Well, I think there was definitely a sense of excitement before release. There's a video that you can find. Maybe we'll insert a clip from it here or link to it. But you can find it. It was included in the extras, I guess, from the Star Trek V Blu-ray, where Harv Bennett, poor guy, the producer of the film series, is like hyping up the Paramount sales and marketing crew. And he's talking about, get out there and sell Star Trek V. And he's given a real gung-ho speech. And he's even saying, I think we're headed for even more profit than we made on Star Trek IV. This is a better film, Mm-hmm. And Star Trek IV was a huge hit, and this was nowhere near that. But
this was unfortunately part of the good old-fashioned classic Star Trek movie curse that people talk about.
Yes.
Yeah. For those who don't know what the curse is, the idea was for a long period of time that every odd number Star Trek movie wasn't as good as it could have been, but the even ones were amazing.
Right. But, being a lover of the movie, I had to have the teaser poster. Of course, the final poster is a lot different. It's got the beautiful artwork. I can't remember the name of the artist right now who did every 80s movie poster.
But it had the sweeping base at the bottom with the writers and
it had the characters.
Yeah.
This is just the teaser, which people actually would see in theaters in early 1989. But it's got this beautiful, like chrome lettering.
The embossing.
And I had to have one. So I found one online. I'm very glad I have it. Normally I have it framed on the wall, but I wanted to show it today.
As a side note, you probably should, when you do the credits, show this up framed on the wall.
So I guess that concludes our look at Star Trek V for today. We mainly wanted to look at the figures because there's such rarities. A lot of people don't know that there was merchandise made for that movie.
And again, as you mentioned, it is your absolute favorite. It's been an absolute joy to work with. And you've been telling me all much about Star Trek that even I didn't know. And again, you mentioned before that you're working on something about that, which when that happens, it happens to be great. But just to be able to see all the devotion and love that you have for this project and how Star Trek V just kind of developed in ways that none of the other movies did. With looking at the action figures, looking at the product placement, everything. It was a very different movie, and it really deserves its own showcasing rather than just being, the worst of the worst. And trust me, I've seen some others that have been worse than that.
True, very true, very true. Mr. Shatner, Captain Kirk didn't do too bad in the end.
Nope.
Any final thoughts on Star Trek V, Dan? I think that's it for me.
Honestly, again, if you have a chance, watch it just to watch it, because again, it's all part of the mythos. And you got to love what this guy loves. So just enjoy it, and everybody else.
Lots more coverage of Star Trek to come on this channel, and there will even be more coverage of Star Trek V. We have some interesting things in mind for the future. Thanks for joining us on Popula. Popula will return.
Live long and prosper.